Namaskar, and I very warm welcome all of you in today's wonderful evening and to our program, that is Government Tech Summit. And I am Hemangini Rajput. I'm the assistant editor here in Elets Technomedia. And today in this program, we have a very eminent speaker with us. Uh, So basically, the Government Tech Summit that we are doing today is a webinar that aims to lay emphasis on leveraging technology driven tools and optimizing the design to overcome challenges faced by the public work department in planning, designing, construction, and maintenance to build the environment and infrastructure development. And we have a very eminent industrial and industry expert here to address this thing. And we have Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar from Autodesk and the regional head APAC. So I would like to hand over to you, Mr. Nikhil.
Hey, thanks, Himangi. Very warm good afternoon to all of you, and I hope you and your loved ones are doing fine in these times. What I wanted to do today is essentially set some context for the conversations that will follow. Come to think of it, there's 1.3 billion of us who call India our home, and it's estimated by 2050 there'll be 2 billion of us, right? So it's not just the number of people that's going to grow, but what's also happening is India is the fastest growing country when it comes to the growth in middle class. Some reports say that there are 1.3 lakh people getting added to the Indian middle class every single day. And what that means is, as people get access to more disposable income, they want better quality of life and things by that perspective. For example, people with more disposable income would want things like better phones, access to better motorized transport, cars, motorbikes, access to better foods, access to things like supermarkets. And not just that, if you go by the old Indian adage, they would need access to better housing, better infrastructure, and better services from the ecosystem in which they operate. It's not an unknown fact that the Indian construction industry is going to grow at the fastest clip compared to any other construction industry in all of Asia. We're expecting the Indian construction industry to grow at a CAGR of 15.7% or more. And this also kind of plays with the broader Indian dream of being a $5 trillion economy by the next few years, because just the construction segment is going to contribute to as much as $1 trillion out of that $5 trillion. And this itself is being pushed massively by the huge movement of people from rural places to our cities. Today, if you look at 2020 figures, it's around 1/3 of Indians live in cities, close to 1/3, a little less than that. By 2030, a study estimates that 40% of Indians will live in cities while the population continues to expand. Now, while I talk about it, just take a minute and think of the city that you're in. Look at the infrastructures, look at the resources that are available, and ask yourself the question, can the current city really take 25%, 30% more people with the same infrastructure segment? And that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, right? And that's where eminent speakers, which we have on the panel today, will debate and discuss of how technology is really going to play a big role in terms of enabling this growth that we're going to see, this mass urbanization that we're going to see in India, and doing it while providing a better quality of life for us Indians, and also better services for all the residents of the city that we call home and that we're so proud of. So essentially what I'm saying is more is inevitable, right? More people in cities, more asks for infrastructure is all inevitable. At the same time, there's also the reality of lesser resources in terms of cement, material, lesser overall human resources available for construction work. And therein lies the opportunity of better. How do we build in a which is much more efficient? Today, 30% of the global waste is produced by the construction industry. When I say construction, I'm talking about roads, highways, offices, residential complexes. 30% of the global waste is produced by them. As much as 70% of the global freshwater is consumed in residential and commercial projects. How do we do things more efficiently so that we are able to do more with less? And that's in my personal opinion, that's the only way in which we'll be able to realize the maximum potential that our country and the states and the cities that we call home really have. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Himangini and Krishna to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Nikhilji, for addressing this. And with this, we will move to our panelists, as we have eminent speakers in our panels today. We have the chief engineer and from different department, from PWD department of different states. So I would like to welcome Shri M. Sivarama Subramaniam, Chief Engineer, PWD Department, Andaman Public Works. Very warm welcome, sir, to you. And we have a very eminent speaker, Mr. K.P. Shivakumar, with us, Project Director and Chief Engineer, Public Work Department, Government of Karnataka. And we have our moderator, Mr. K.C. Mishra, project head, special projects, Elets Technomedia here. So with this, we'll start with our session, and I would like to hand over the session to K.C. Mishra.
Thank you, Himangini. Thank you for that warm welcome. And my thanks to Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar, also our expert from Autodesk. He has laid out the context of this session in a very beautiful manner, and he gave us some amazing statistics, and these were actually an eye-opener for not only all of us, but the society at large. When he says that 60% of the fresh water is being consumed by the construction industry, when he says that 30% of the global waste is produced by the construction industry, when he talks about the displacement from rural locations to urban locations and the complexities of the urban system in times to come, where he is talking about the infrastructure bottlenecks. So these are real life problems which all of us are facing, and we are here with some eminent administrators from the construction industry, primarily from the government departments. We'll be joined by speakers from different states, but as of now, we have got engineering chief from Andaman and Nicobar administration, the Andaman Public Works Department, Mr. Shivarama Subramaniam, and joining him is Mr. K.P. Shivakumar, Project Director of Karnataka State Highways Improvement Project. So a quick 2 minutes introductory remarks from both of you, starting from Mr. Subramaniam.
Good evening to all of you, sirs. I am Swaram Subramanian from Andaman PWD. Andaman PWD, we are having 19 divisions and 4 circles, sir. And in these 19 divisions, we are using ESTA as a software that is developed by Ojasvi software, and it is based on Delhi Schedule of Rates, SOR 2018, that is DSR, with the integrated features of Delhi analysis of rates, both civil and electrical. It provides a complete solution for us in the preparation of preliminary and detailed estimates, technical sanction, comparative statement of tenders, justification of tenders, market analysis of schedule as well as non-schedule items, preparation of bills and extra and substituted item statement and bill of quantities, etc. Various divisions of PWD is also using AutoCAD for preparation of drawings, etc. And here one architecture unit is there. They are using ArchiCAD 15 as a software for preparation of architectural, preliminary and working drawings. And the 3D modeling also of the new building projects can also be prepared by this ArchiCAD 50. And one more software, Revit, but it is not used by us because of ArchiCAD, all the experience they have got. In our town planning unit, we are using AutoCAD, ArcGIS and QGIS for the preparation of various global positioning systems, etc. for drawings. Apart from this, very recently, Kerala, that is a National Institute of Kerala is introducing price escalation estimation software, and it is widely adopted in Kerala PWD and as well as CPWD also. Now we are having thought of using the price escalation, sir. So this is what we are using, some of the softwares for our daily use. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was Mr. Shivram Subramaniam.
Yes.
Before I invite the next speaker of the panel discussion, Mr. K.P. Shubhakumar, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary, Building and Construction Department, Government of Bihar. Mr. Manish Kumar, if I may request you to kindly put on your video, please.
Okay.
Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary, Building and Construction Department.
I'm trying to put my videos on.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, let me bring in our next speaker, Mr. K.P. Shubhakumar, for his opening introductory remarks of not more than 2 minutes till the time he stabilizes. Manish ji, dikh rahe hain aap. Namaskar.
जी.
Welcome to this panel discussion, Sustainable Development for Building Atmanirbhar Bharat by Autodesk and Elets Technomedia.
Thank you.
So we are just going to the panel discussion. I would like to have a quick remark of 1 minute from Mr. K.P. Shubhakumar before I come to Mr. Manish Kumar. Mr. K.P. Shubhakumar, please. Your opening comments on the topic, building sustainable development for Atmanirbhar Bharat.
So good evening to you all. I'm very pleased to be here with you all. I'm a K.P. Shivkumar, Project Director from Karnataka State Highway Improvement Project, Karnataka Public Works Department. The KSHIP is established in year 1999. It's a wing of Public Works Department to implement the state highway improvement projects in Government of Karnataka with the assistance of World Bank and Asian Development Banks. Since 1999, actually, we have completed more than 4,300 kilometers of road length across the state with the external assistance of the project. So our aim is not only implement the road works, and also the aim is to transfer the knowledge to the Public Works Department, and also strengthening the department by conducting hiring so many services for strengthening the institution by ISO certifications, and also some e-learning platform, and procuring the project management softwares and everything. And also public rehearsal cells also we have established. So when we started the project for KSHIP 1, it will have taken nearly 10 years for actually from the date of start of the project to the completion. So based on our earlier lesson learned, so these are all, you know, that actually the road projects are actually mid-term project. The life is actually, I think that the entire project should be completed within 6 to 8 years, because we have taken some time to implement the project more than what we stipulated, because actually we have spent much time for planning, and we have actually spent more time for implementation. Because during the implementation, we come to know that actually we have encountered with so many impediments, especially land acquisitions and getting the statutory approvals from the relevant with the line departments and all. But in spite of that, we have completed the project, but we have learned the lesson that actually how to minimize the time during the preparation of planning and also during the implementation. Based on that, actually, when come to the KSHIP 2, the second tranche, which started in the year from 2012, we could able to complete the project from 2012 to 2018. So earlier for K-ship 1, we have taken nearly 10 years, about 10 years. For K-ship 2, we have taken only because of the only 7 years, and we have reduced the 3 years in implementation of the project due to adopting the latest technologies like actually GIS, and also actually collecting all the map sheets of the required information, the land acquisitions, and also forest related softwares, and also the archaeological survey details, and also tank details and the revenue records and all. We have actually had the in-house, we have actually software, and we have taken that is a consideration for preparation of the project plan, so that the planning went very well. So during the implementation of the period, we have could not face the much problem, because when we during the planning itself, we have adopted the good technology to identify the critical issues. This is how we are taking the project further to implement the project effectively and cost effective also. But if you come to the actually the environmental aspects, actually as rightly said, that we have actually given an importance for the actually for sampling of trees all along the corridor. Though Supreme Court says that if you cut 1 tree, then you have to go for 3 trees. But we have adopted actually irrespective of the number of trees. We have started sampling really every 10-meter intervals all along this roadside. And also we have taken initiation for actually development of the road, tank development all along the corridor, so that I think it will be had the beauty of the road, and also actually it is a contribution to the actually environment and also the public at large. So that is also a great contribution from the road sector to the environmental aspects. During implementation, also we have followed the best practices to monitor the noise pollution, air pollution, and dust pollutions. So that is actually a very good practice. Now that we have been transferred to the other my public works department by actually implementing the ISO 14001 and 2015 also. To next question is an implementation, sustainability. How to do the sustainability? But so for that, actually, we have procured actually quality management system ISO 9001. So now quality management system QMS is also transferred to the my other public works department divisions, subdivisions, and so that the substantial sustainability will also be there, and also the transfer of knowledge from the public works, from World Bank project to the our local public works department. So it is very, very useful. So based on this, actually, we have established a very good unit that calls actually the PRAMC.
I'll come back to the details later on. Let me first have an initial round of just opening comments from all the speakers here. And then you, of course, spoke about how your department has been adopting technology. No, you also quite rightly mentioned about the sustainability angle as well, when you mentioned about curbing the air, noise, and dust pollution, and of course, planting the trees. I would like to know some more practical difficulties and challenges the department faced. But before that, let me welcome, I can see on the screen here, Mr. Sanjay Singh, Engineer-in-Chief, Building and Construction Department, Government of Jharkhand. Namaskar, Sanjay ji. Mr. Sanjay Singh, namaskar. Welcome to this program, second edition of Government Tech Summit, brought to you by Autodesk in partnership with Elets Technomedia.
हाँ नमस्कार, आवाज आ रही है आपको?
बिल्कुल दुरुस्त आ रही है सर, बहुत बहुत स्वागत आपका।
और थोड़ा सा जो करेक्शन कर लीजिए, मैं चीफ इंजीनियर हूँ, इंजीनियरिंग चीफ नहीं हूँ, मैं चीफ इंजीनियर बिल्डिंग।
I stand corrected and thank you for this pointing out. So before I actually invite for your opening comments, Sanjay ji, let me first invite Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary, BCD Department, Government of Bihar. Manish ji, your opening comments, sustainable development for building and Atmanirbhar Bharat.
जी नमस्कार. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
बोलो बोलो. This topic is very relevant. I mean, leveraging technology for building, construction, and sustainable designs, because we are seeing right now a lot of ecological issues due to a very large scale of building construction. Even in Patna, in Bihar, we are seeing very large scale of building constructions. There are so many projects coming up, and due to that, our whole environment, climate, the population level goes very high, and even the design part also, you have to be very careful for to actually complete the projects on time, and to reduce the cost of construction, and to make the construction eco-friendly. How to pre-construction and post-construction also. So we are all trying to do incorporate many things in Bihar. Like we are mostly using fly ash bricks throughout our constructions. We mostly use fly ash bricks, and we are incorporating our RWH, rainwater harvesting, to collect the rainwater, etc. And also we are trying to minimize the construction cost also by different ways. So we'll discuss further in the meeting. Please carry on.
Sure. Thank you for those opening comments, Manish ji. Now let me bring in here Mr. Sanjay Singh, Chief Engineer, Government of Jharkhand, BCD, Building and Construction Department. Sanjay ji, over to you for your opening remarks.
कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लोग इनवाइट करते हैं, एक हम लोग का जो यहाँ स्टैंडर्ड बिडिंग डॉक्यूमेंट है उसके अनुसार कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से इनवाइट करते हैं, और एक ईपीसी जो मोड होता है इसके अनुसार करते हैं। तो सबसे पहले कोई भी कंस्ट्रक्शन हम लोग स्टार्ट करते हैं तो उसका डीपीआर बनवाते हैं कंसल्टेंट से। मान लीजिए सपोज कीजिए 500 बेड हॉस्पिटल हम लोग को बनाना है, जिसे हम लोग जमशेदपुर में एक बना रहे हैं, झारखंड में 500 बेड हॉस्पिटल। तो सबसे पहले हम लोग उसके लिए एक इनिशिएट करते हैं कि डीपीआर कंसल्टेंट के लिए, कंसल्टेंट जो है वो काफी अच्छा रहना चाहिए। उसको सॉइल इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर करके ये डीपीआर बनता है, उसका टेक्निकल सेक्शन करके हम लोग उसको इनवाइट करते हैं। टेंडर इनवाइट करने पर उसको काम अवार्ड करते हैं। जो डिफिकल्टी जो आप बोल रहे थे कि जो डिजाइन में जो आती है, अभी नया नया हम लोग का जो जैसे अभी है कि फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स लगाना है, ठीक है। एक तरफ गवर्नमेंट कर रही है कि फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स लगाना है, आप लोग भी सुने होंगे कि इको फ्रेंडली होने के लिए फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स को ये करने के लिए, लेकिन कुछ जगह कुछ कंप्लेंट्स भी आती है उसका। अभी कुछ बिल्डिंग्स हमारे बने हैं जिसमें कुछ क्रैक्स डेवलप कर गए हैं फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स में, तो उस पर भी हम लोग ये विचार कर रहे हैं अभी कि किस तरह से इसको, मतलब इसमें हम लोग का कुछ टेक्नोलॉजी को और डेवलप करना चाहिए, कुछ टेस्ट का, कि एब्रप्टली किसी चीज को हम लोग को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना चाहिए। ये सही बात है कि जितने हमारे प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं उसमें फ्लाई एश ब्रिक्स को हम लोग को प्रेफरेंस देना चाहिए, लेकिन कुछ में उसमें है कि सल्फेट कंटेंट कितना है कितना नहीं है, इसके अनुसार कुछ क्वालिटी का एश्योरेंस ऑफ क्वालिटी, और ड्यू टू लेटेस्ट टेस्ट रिपोर्ट, और इसमें भी कुछ रिसर्च की भी आवश्यकता है, तभी जाकर के हम लोग को उसको अडॉप्ट करना चाहिए। नहीं तो इस तरह से इन जनरल हम लोग को नहीं अडॉप्ट करना चाहिए। एक तो ये हम लोग का ऑब्जर्वेशन है अभी का, और दूसरा है कि बिल्डिंग आइटम्स में बहुत सारे ऐसे रहते हैं जिसे हम लोग शेड्यूल ऑफ रेट के अनुसार काम करते हैं, तो नॉन शेड्यूल आइटम भी इसमें रहते हैं। नॉन शेड्यूल आइटम को हम लोग जो है उसको किस तरह से उसको मार्केट रेट से लेकर के उसको नया टेक्नोलॉजी के अनुसार उसको अडॉप्ट करें, इसके बारे में भी शेड्यूल ऑफ रेट कमेटी में हम लोग इसको बार बार ले जा रहे हैं। लेकिन बिल्डिंग डिपार्टमेंट में क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है कि देयर आर सो मेनी आइटम्स बहुत ज्यादा रहते हैं, तो उस इतना ज्यादा आइटम्स रहते हैं कि उतना एसओआर में कभी भी अडॉप्ट नहीं हो पाता है, और ये प्रैक्टिकल डिफिकल्टी बिल्डिंग कंस्ट्रक्शन में हो रहा है। रोड्स में ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो रही, अदर डिपार्टमेंट में प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो रही, लेकिन बिल्डिंग कंस्ट्रक्शन डिपार्टमेंट में जैसे कोई भी चीज आप सिंपल सा समझ लीजिए, आपको चेयर ही लेना है, तो चेयर किस कंपनी का लेना है क्या नहीं है, किस क्वालिटी का रहना चाहिए आपके फर्निशिंग के लिए। फर्निशिंग में ही सो मेनी आइटम्स रहता है, तो इसमें थोड़ा सा हम लोग को डिफिकल्टी होती है, तो इसको हम लोग भी ये कर रहे हैं। और जहाँ तक प्रोजेक्ट का बात है, हम लोग कोशिश करते हैं कि इसको शेड्यूल टाइम पे कंप्लीट करें। और हम लोग किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट में ये समझ के चलते हैं कि जो हमारा इक्वल पार्टनर जो है कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, क्योंकि प्रोजेक्ट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन जो है तभी सक्सेसफुल होगा जब आप को पार्टनर को उतना ही इंपॉर्टेंस दीजिएगा। मतलब कि उसकी क्या डिफिकल्टी है उसे हमें उसको रियलाइज करना पड़ेगा। इसलिए हम लोग अपने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में मोबिलाइजेशन एडवांस का भी प्रावधान रखा है कि किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को मोबिलाइजेशन एडवांस देने से क्या होता है कि वो अपने जो वर्क है उसको एक्सपीडाइट कर सकते हैं। दूसरा है कि प्राइस एस्केलेशन का भी हम लोग प्रावधान रखे हैं, प्रोविजन है प्राइस एस्केलेशन का। कि सपोज कीजिए कि 2 इयर्स का हमारा प्रोजेक्ट है, तो 2 इयर्स के प्रोजेक्ट में उसे मटेरियल का कुछ कॉस्ट बढ़ेगा, उसका स्टील का कॉस्ट बढ़ेगा, सीमेंट का कॉस्ट बढ़ेगा। तो ये सब हम लोग उनके, पहले ये सब नहीं था, अभी हम लोग उसको उनके बेनिफिट के लिए या फिर उनके प्रैक्टिकल होने के लिए उस पर प्राइस एस्केलेशन देते हैं। लेकिन हमारा जो प्रावधान है कि प्राइस वेरिएशंस करके है, मतलब अगर कॉस्ट घटेगा तो आपका कॉस्ट रिड्यूस कर देंगे, और कॉस्ट बढ़ेगा तो आपका कॉस्ट इंक्रीज कर देंगे। मतलब एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अवार्ड हुआ सपोज कीजिए 100 करोड़ का, अगर सपोज कीजिए कि अभी 100 करोड़ का अवार्ड हुआ और उसमें तेल का प्राइस घट गया। तेल का प्राइस घट जाने से क्या हुआ कि सभी चीज का, बिटुमेन का हुआ या सीमेंट का हुआ, स्टील का हुआ, सबका कॉस्ट घटने लगेगा, उसके अनुसार हमारा प्राइस घट जाएगा। लेकिन इन जनरल जो है प्राइस बढ़ता है तो हम लोग उसको उतना हम लोग बेनिफिट देते हैं उस चीज को, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। और हमारे साथ अभी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स में एलएनटी भी काम कर रहे हैं, सापुर जी भी काम कर रहे हैं। इन लोग को हम लोग इक्वली एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे रख करके ये चाहते हैं कि कोई भी डिफिकल्टी नहीं हो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को, और टाइमली हम लोग डिलीवर करें जो भी है हॉस्पिटल का वर्क, और ये उनका जो भी इश्यूज है उसको रिजॉल्व करें। थैंक यू।
ठीक है संजय जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका। आपने एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट उठाया कि मेकिंग द कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स एज योर को पार्टनर, एज यू राइटली मेंशन, कि बराबर की भागीदारी जब तक होगी नहीं तब तक वो प्रोजेक्ट धरातल पर उतरेंगे नहीं, है ना। तो उसमें एक क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में आता है जो मैं आपको थोड़ी देर में पूछूंगा कि अभी हमारा जो थीम आज के डिस्कशन का है, मतलब जो ओपनिंग कमेंट्स थे कि कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री जो है इट इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग अराउंड, इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू कंट्रीब्यूट अराउंड $1 ट्रिलियन, जो इंडियन इकोनॉमी $5 ट्रिलियन की बात करते हैं आने वाले टाइम में, उससे 1/5 कंट्रीब्यूशन वुड बी फ्रॉम द कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर। और कैसे हम कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर में, चाहे हम रोड्स की बात करें, बिल्डिंग्स की बात करें और अन्य सरकारी कंस्ट्रक्शन की बात करें, कैसे उसमें हम सस्टेनेबिलिटी के एंगल को फैक्टर इन करें। और आपने जैसे बात करी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स की, तो हाउ कैन वी सेंसिटाइज, या हम कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स को कैसे सेंसिटाइज कर रहे हैं एनवायरमेंटल के कॉन्शियसनेस के प्रति और ओवरऑल सस्टेनेबिलिटी के प्रति। आई विल कम बैक टू यू सर। मीनवाइल वन क्विक क्वेश्चन
मैं बताना चाहता हूँ, आपने जो अभी बोला कि कोविड-19 जिसे था, ठीक है ना, तो हम लोगों का जो इंस्ट्रक्शन था, जैसे मैं अपने साइट का एक्सपीरियंस बता रहा हूँ। मेरा एमजीएम जमशेदपुर में एक साइट चल रहा है। जमशेदपुर आप वेल नोन होंगे, जो लौह नगरी है जमशेदपुर, वहां पर 500 बेडेड हॉस्पिटल का काम चल रहा है और एलएनटी काम कर रहा है। 800 लेबर्स उसमें एंगेज है, डेली 800 लेबर्स काम करते हैं उस साइट पर हॉस्पिटल बनाने में। और हम लोगों का इंस्ट्रक्शन रहता है कि सभी का कोविड टेस्ट के बाद ही उसको हम लोग को कार्ड इशू करते हैं। कोविड टेस्ट में जिसका निगेटिव रहता है वही लेबर उसमें एंगेज हो सकते हैं, वही सुपरवाइजर उसमें एंगेज हो सकते हैं। अगर हम लोग ये नहीं करेंगे तो फिर वो क्या होगा कि एक दूसरे को फिर वो प्रोजेक्ट मेरा हैम्पर कर जाएगा। और मैं इसमें थैंक्स देता हूं जो मेरे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैं एलएनटी, उन्होंने भी मुझे इसका पूरा सहयोग किया कि वो हैजार्ड वे में उन्होंने काम नहीं किया, ठीक है, एक सिस्टम में उन्होंने काम किया। सभी का टेस्ट करवाया, सभी को कार्ड इशू किए, सभी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स को, और एक इंटरवल में उसको बराबर हम लोग टेस्ट करवाते हैं कि कोई भी अगर पॉजिटिव निकल जाता है तो उसको वहां से हटा करके उसको आइसोलेशन में डाल करके उसको उस प्रोजेक्ट में अभी कुछ दिन के लिए हम लोग उसको ये करते हैं। इस कारण से हम लोग कोविड-19 में भी कुछ वर्क्स को मैंने सक्सेसफुली हम लोग डिलीवर करने के पोजीशन में, अदरवाइज हम लोग को बीच में बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो गया। जो आपने बोला कि सस्टेनेबिलिटी कोविड-19 किस तरह से आप लोगों ने ये किया, तो कार्ड इशू करके हम लोगों ने इसमें ये सिस्टम इवॉल्व किया था।
थैंक यू संजय जी, नाइस इनपुट। I'm now moving to Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary, Building Construction Department, Government of Bihar. Sanjay ji, are you there?
You talk Manish Kumar, ना?
Sorry, Mr. Manish Kumar.
जी, मैं हूँ यहाँ पे।
हाँ सर, अभी वेरी रिसेंटली हाल की बात है जब मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार ने एक मेंटेनेंस पॉलिसी पे काम करने के लिए कहा है बीसीडी डिपार्टमेंट को. सो व्हाट आर गोइंग टू बी सम ऑफ द की फोकस एरियाज व्हाट एज पर द पॉलिसीज?
बिल्कुल, अभी ये रिलेवेंट डेवलपमेंट है। डबल सीएम साहब चाहते हैं कि हमारे जो फील्ड के इंजीनियर हैं, वो जो पूर्व में हम लोग देखते थे कि सारे अभियंतागण विभागीय स्तर से बहुत सा काम करा लेते थे। बीच में ये प्रैक्टिस आ गई कि नहीं, हर छोटे मोटे काम के लिए भी टेंडर कीजिए, टेंडर करने के बाद जो है संवेदक को सिलेक्ट कीजिए और फिर उसके बाद काम कराइए। या कई दफ़ा तो ऐसा भी होता है कि पहले काम करा लीजिए, बाद में फिर उन चीज़ों को रेगुलराइज करने की कोशिश कीजिए। तो ऑनरेबल सीएम ने कहा कि नहीं, इस तरह के कार्यकलाप से जो है विभाग की और अभियंताओं की जो इमेज है वो खराब होती है। एक सिस्टमेटिक होना चाहिए सारे विभागों में। तो उनके निर्देश में सारे विभाग जो है हम लोग एक मेंटेनेंस पॉलिसी पे काम कर रहे हैं, ताकि जो है विभागीय रूप से अधिकांश काम संपन्न करा सकें। उसमें जो है हमारे जो असिस्टेंट इंजीनियर होंगे, उनका की रोल होगा। वो लोग जो है अपना तो कुछ कैश एडवांस किया जाएगा, या कुछ उनके पास में इनपैनल्ड जो है सप्लायर्स एंड लेबर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स रहेंगे, उनके माध्यम से वो आपूर्ति लेते हुए उन चीज़ों को पूरा करेंगे। यही नीति है संक्षेप में हम लोगों की। आप देखिए आगे फिर इसमें क्या क्या हम लोग और कर पाते हैं। इसमें हम लोग ने जो है प्रयास किया कि सारी चीज़ों को हम लोग जो है एक स्टैंडर्ड बना के रखेंगे कि हर काम की कितनी फ्रिक्वेंसी होनी चाहिए, किस इक्विपमेंट का कितना स्टैंडर्ड लाइफ होना चाहिए, कौन कौन से काम नहीं करने हैं आवासों में, कौन कौन से करने हैं, ताकि लोगों को कोई डाउट न रहे कि हम अपव्यय हो रहा है या खर्च कम हो रहा है। जी
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मनीष जी।
इसमें और भी इनपुट दूंगा मैं आपको कि हम लोग चाह रहे हैं कि सारी चीज़ों को जो है सिर्फ कॉल सेंटर और मोबाइल ऐप के माध्यम से इनकी मॉनिटरिंग भी बहुत जरूरी है
जी,
क्योंकि बिना मॉनिटरिंग का जो है फिर सारा रिकॉर्ड बहुत जरूरी है। किस मकान में कितना खर्च किया गया, किस काम को कितनी बार किया गया, उपभोक्ताओं का फीडबैक भी हम लोग कुछ प्राप्त करना चाहेंगे मोबाइल ऐप के माध्यम से भी और कॉल सेंटर के माध्यम से भी। तो आशा है कि हम लोग इस साल के आखिर तक इन सब चीज़ों को जो है सेट राइट कर सकेंगे और बिहार की बिल्डिंग का मेंटेनेंस भी हम लोग जो है और अच्छे से कर पाएंगे।
जी, और एक बात से तो आप एग्री करेंगे कि अब जो भी हम कायाकल्प की बात कर रहे हैं नई नीति के थ्रू, है ना, और व्हाट एवर इनिशिएटिव्स वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट, और इनके केंद्र में हर जगह टेक्नोलॉजी ही आती है
जी।
एंड और जब मैं बात करता हूँ टेक्नोलॉजी की, तो एक पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप के बगैर उस टेक्नोलॉजी को डिपार्टमेंट विभाग अडॉप्ट नहीं कर सकता है, अडॉप्ट करेगा फिर डिप्लॉय नहीं कर सकता है। तो इस मुद्दे पर आई वुड लाइक टू ब्रिंग इन मिस्टर निखिल बागलकोटकर, हु इज द एपेक टेक्निकल हेड AEC Business Autodesk. Nikhil, how can Autodesk's architecture, engineering, Nikhil, are you there? Nikhil?
Before that,
Yes, sorry, I can hear you.
Yeah, Nikhil.
hello.
अच्छा, हटी फाइल तो आई थी, ठीक है, बाद में करेंगे। थैंक यू
Sir,
Krishna, I can hear you. Can you repeat the question, please?
I was just asking you, Nikhil, we just heard Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary from Bihar. They were going to formulate a policy on various facets of public construction. My question to you, Nikhil, how can private sector come in handy as far as digitization of the construction departments are concerned or construction works are concerned? Or how can the private sector itself play a big role in streamlining the overall functioning of the construction department in terms of digitization and automation?
sir, excuse me.
If you look at some of the emerging trends that are happening in the industry and across the world, we're seeing that there's a lot of efficiency that's possible by leveraging things like industrialized construction. Think of it this way: you take any large project, be it a hospital or a road, or a metro rail project, or for that matter, a tunnel. And what you can do today is, I believe there's disturbance coming in. Yes. So what you can do is you can essentially run algorithms which can take that large project and divide it up into smaller reproducible elements. What that helps you do is that helps you essentially take a large project, take those small elements, and then build those smaller elements at a industry scale. Again, to give you some metrics, the productivity, which is input versus output, for the manufacturing segment has increased by 80% from 2000 to 2020, in the last 20 years. The same input versus output ratio for the construction industry has gone up by just 20% in the same 20-year time frame. So by bringing in private sector, what you're able to do is you're able to leverage these emerging technologies, things like industrialized construction, things like using better material and better methods of construction than in themselves to provide these repeatable, to build these repeatable components at scale at a lower cost and delivering it on time on site. So what essentially happens is any project that you look at, it becomes a big giant jigsaw where you can, bring in elements, assemble them on site and bring things up. And prefabrication or industrialized construction is no longer just limited to low-cost homes. It's now matured quite a lot. Just 2 months back, there was a hotel in New York, in Manhattan, which was built up in a span of 8 weeks using industrialized construction. The entire rooms, believe it or not, were made in Poland. They were shipped through a cargo ship, bought onto site, shipped to the site using a container truck, and assembled and integrated into the core. There was another project that happened in London for their underground metro station, where they took the entire underground metro station, they gave it to a private contractor, which in turn took the entire design of the private construction for that metro and did an AI algorithm to convert each and every element that is required to build that train station out into small repeatable blocks. Net result, they were able to complete the work at 60% of the time that was allotted for the entire project, and they did it with 99% error-free rates, 99.9% error-free rates. In fact, the construction was so fast that the back-end factory, which was manufacturing those prefabricated elements, had to increase their capacity just to keep pace. So what happens is, by leveraging technology and by leveraging products throughout the entire life cycle of a project, what we're able to do is we're able to help increase the pace of the project, reduce the overall costs, give a lot more predictability in terms of what is the amount of money that needs to be paid to the contractor after XYZ amount of work is completed, and whether that XYZ amount of work is completed or not. And not just that, we're also able to very granularly monitor errors and solve for those errors in real time, instead of waiting for an email or a note to come and then go through the entire hierarchy of the organization and then get acted upon. Here you have a real-time alert. There's a buzz that comes on your phone, and then you need to see what needs to be solved for, and you solve for it in real time. Net results, lower cost, lower time required for the project, and significant reduction in the risk associated. In fact, I just named a couple of examples outside of India, but there are tons of examples even in India. The biggest airport terminal that's being developed right now in the country is using these kind of techniques, end-to-end design technology. Some of the names for large EPC contractors use this effectively for quite a few of their projects, provided the authorities that are releasing those projects mandate the need for BIM, connected BIM, and industrialized construction. Once those mandates come through, we've seen this. We've seen a couple of IITs, the new IITs which were developed. They were all developed using BIM and connected BIM to reduce costs, have more granularity and control over costing, and as well as time. Some of the largest metro projects that have been executed in our country have been executed using these techniques. So essentially, technology exists. Once it is mandated for the providers to use, there are benefits at the end of the day for everybody, and the projects run much, much smoother.
Thank you, Nikhil. That was Nikhil Bagalkotkar, APEC Technical Head from Autodesk. He was just mentioning the scope and the infinite possibilities which technology can play in not only the faster execution of mammoth construction projects like roads, highways, and buildings, but also in overall bringing down the cost of the project, in minimizing the cost and time overruns. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, I can see here our new speaker, Mr. Ajit Ramachandran, who has just joined us. Let me introduce Mr. Ramachandran, working as Chief Engineer Roads in PWD Government of Kerala. Mr. Ramachandran, am I audible to you? Mr. Ajit Ramachandran, Chief Engineer, Public Works Department, Kerala Government. Seems there is some problem at his end. I can see him there on the screen, but possibly some problem with the audio part. May I bring in here Mr. Shivakumar? Mr. Ramachandran, I can see you now. Good afternoon, namaskar.
Namaskar,
Mr. Ramachandran.
Yeah.
Welcome to this panel discussion on
Thank you.
sustainable development and building in Atmanirbhar Bharat.
I am also attending another meeting. That's the problem.
I understand. In fact, you go from the entire team of Elets as well as Autodesk. Despite a busy schedule, you took out time and shared to thought your wisdom. So, quick comments from you on this topic, Mr. Ramachandran. We are discussing sustainable development for building in Atmanirbhar Bharat. How can we bring in this technological resilience and sustainability in all the construction activities which your
Now,
department
with
is
the help of the World Bank projects, we are now switching on to this type of roads. That's this sustainable roads as well as climate resilient roads. Now we have started. Actually, we have on the verge of starting a project in Shabarimala, Pamba Basin, with the help of the World Bank, so as to go for the climate resilient roads. Now the thing is that we have not yet got a procedure, a proper procedure, how we are going to develop this climate resilient roads, and how we are going to construct this climate resilient. So now we are going to prepare for a procedure, a draft procedure for how we are going to build the climate resilient roads. That's the discussions now going on in the department. That is with the help of the KSTP as well as World Bank, with the aid of World Bank.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ajit Ramachandran. I will now like to bring in here Mr. KP Shivakumar. Mr. KP Shivakumar from Karnataka.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah, Mr. Shivakumar. So you were mentioning about the intensive efforts being undertaken by PWD Karnataka as well as Karnataka States and Highways Improvement Projects. So could you please now elaborate upon the various measures you are mentioning about the various measures to reduce the pollution as well as to increase the green cover, and how are you leveraging technology to increase the overall resilience of the department?
The technology, actually, we have set some key performance indicator before actually during the planning period. Suppose if you say that actually the noise pollution, actually what is the permissible parameter to control the noise pollution. Then actually during the construction, actually we will take that software and then equipment during construction, and we will see that actually if it is more than 60 decibel or something like that, actually what are the mitigation measures to be implemented, that we already that will take action to actually reduce the noise pollution at the site. And also whatever you can see actually in the construction, you know that actually the road is passing in front of this public schools, hospitals, or some other public buildings. We constructing actually noise barriers permanently to reduce the noise to the especially in front of school and hospitals. So that is a good practices we are adopted, and we are supposed to transfer this technology to the our department also. Yes, it is as far as the control of the noise and actually pollutions. And also for air, I think because of the air pollution and all actually, so we know that actually the construction of the road, especially in the city limit or village limit, is not only limited to the actually the carriageway width. We will extend that actually the carriageway width to the edge of the building line, so that actually those all when vehicles are passing, because you know that actually the vehicles in the city limits is actually more compared to the outside the city limits. So that when generally this all the vehicles still today they're parking at the adjacent side of the road, so that it will create the more what you call this air pollution. So that I think we are in a practice that actually to construct the road till edge of the drains, so that the dust pollution will be controlled within the city limit and village limit also. That is one of the best practice we are adopting for the as well as the controlling this air pollution also. And we are discussing about the noise pollution and all. Actually, this is best practices we have adopted, and also we are supposed to take this measure to the regular public works department at a large.
Thank you, Mr. Shiv Kumar. Sanjay ji, if you are still there from Jharkhand, Jharkhand primarily एक rural राज्य है जहाँ पर मतलब rural comparatively rural population की percentage ज़्यादा है. तो what are the typical infrastructural challenges जो आपके department को face करनी पड़ती हैं? प्लस आपने एक अच्छा एग्जांपल दिया था सस्टेनेबिलिटी अगर बिल्डअप करना है तो हमको फ्लाई ऐश का भी यूसेज बढ़ाना पड़ेगा, ऑल्दो यू डिड मेंशन कि उसमें भी काफी ज्यादा रिसर्च की जरूरत है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट व्हाट आर द अदर चैलेंजेस जो आपको लगते हैं इन द गवर्नमेंट इन द स्टेट ऑफ झारखंड इन द ओवरऑल कंस्ट्रक्शन डिपार्टमेंट? मिस्टर संजय सिंह.
यहाँ ऐसा देखा जा रहा है कि अभी जो हम लोग का स्टील का इंडस्ट्री कुछ है झारखंड में, जैसे बोकारो स्टील प्लांट है, टाटा स्टील का जो कैपेसिटी है, आप लोग सरप्राइज होइएगा कि 2 मिलियन टन से उन्होंने स्टार्ट किया था, अभी 12 बिलियन टन उसका जा रहा है, 10+ हो गया है. तो ये जो प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है उसमें क्या है, स्लैग्स काफी अभी आ रहे हैं, तो स्लैग्स को यूज करना है हम लोग को रोड्स में और सीमेंट में. सीमेंट प्रोडक्शन का भी यहाँ पर है, नोवोको का फैक्ट्री है, एसीसी का फैक्ट्री है, तो उसको हम लोगों को यूज करने के लिए किस तरह से स्लैग्स को यूज करना है, इसमें भी बहुत एडवांस की अभी अदर कंट्रीज में भी इसमें रिसर्च चल रहा है, लेकिन कुछ लिमिटेशंस है, कुछ रिसर्च है और कुछ ड्रॉबैक्स है. तो उसको अडॉप्ट करने के लिए इसमें टेक्नोलॉजी की आवश्यकता है. उस टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज करते हुए जो हम लोगों का जो वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट है, वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट को किस तरह से बिल्डिंग मटेरियल्स या रोड मटेरियल्स, कंस्ट्रक्शन मटेरियल में किस तरह से यूज करना है, इस पर हम लोग काफी हम लोग की आवश्यकता है, अभी नेसेसिटी है. और आपने कहा कि रूरल बैकग्राउंड के लिए, तो रूरल बैकग्राउंड से कोई ऐसी डिफिकल्टी नहीं हो रही है क्योंकि लेबर्स का कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. आपको यह जान करके आश्चर्य होगा कि यहाँ के ही लेबर बहुत जगह बाहर जाते हैं काम करने के लिए, लेकिन एक फैक्टर आ रहा है जो लोगों को यहाँ पर डिस्टर्ब करता है कि यहाँ के लेबर बाहर जाके काम करते हैं, क्यों यहाँ नहीं काम उतना कर पाते. इसका मेन रीजन यही है कि हम लोग उसको फैसिलिटी उतना प्रोवाइड नहीं कर पाते. कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स को उतना फैसिलिटी उसको प्रोवाइड करना चाहिए जिससे कि वो दूसरी की ट्रेनिंग ऑफ द लेबरर्स, हमें कंस्ट्रक्शन में ट्रेंड लेबर की आवश्यकता होती है. ट्रेनिंग ऑफ लेबर्स जो है, ये पार्ट हमारा जो है मतलब स्टेट में थोड़ा हम लोग इसमें लैक कर रहे हैं, जिसमें जिसके कारण जो है कि क्योंकि देखिए कंस्ट्रक्शन में हम लोग जो एज एन इंजीनियर हम लोग फील करते हैं कि स्किल्ड लेबर इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, अनस्किल्ड की बात नहीं है, स्किल्ड लेबर इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट. लेबर है यहाँ काम कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उनकी ट्रेनिंग उस टाइप की नहीं हो पा रही है जो होनी चाहिए, और उतना ये चैलेंजेस हम लोग को मिलता है यहाँ पर. और यही कारण है कि ये जो है मैंने ये फैक्ट है कि जिसे हमारा काम अगर चल रहा है जमशेदपुर में, तो वहाँ का भी जो गैंग आते हैं काम करने के लिए, जो LNT यूज करता है, कम यहाँ लोकल लेबर रखते हैं, बाहर के लेबर ज्यादा रखते हैं. क्योंकि ये जो है मैंने कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री में जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैं उनको तो प्रॉफिट से मतलब है, लॉस में नहीं जाना चाहिए. तो जो हमारा जो मैनेजमेंट है, लेबर मैनेजमेंट, वो हम लोग इसमें झारखंड में लोकल पीपल से उतना हम लोग नहीं ये कर पा रहे हैं, जबकि लेबर करने में उनको कमी नहीं है, सिर्फ स्किलनेस नहीं आ रही. मतलब वो जो है जो उसको एक्सपर्टाइज होना चाहिए, एक्सपर्टाइज नहीं हो पा रही है ड्यू टू नॉन एक्सपोजर ऑफ द वर्क्स. और ऐसा कहिए कि जो आप इसको समझ सकते हैं, जो एक काम करते हैं,
शायद एक सपोर्टिंग एनवायरनमेंट का भी उसका रोल हो, क्योंकि एज यू राइटली मेंशन कि वो शायद वहाँ उतना काम नहीं करते, वही लेबर जब बाहर जाती हैं. आई रिमेम्बर उत्तराखंड में 4 धाम प्रोजेक्ट में अराउंड 30% जो वर्कर्स हैं, those are from the states of like Jharkhand and Bihar also, है ना. तो शायद एक सपोर्टिंग सिस्टम शायद अभी यहाँ आएगा. अभी वी विश की जल्दी आए। मैं
ये रियल फैक्ट है, दिस इज द रियल
हाँ,
फैक्ट।
आई नो, वी आर
जो
अवेयर ऑफ
आपने
इट। हाँ, वी आर अवेयर ऑफ दिस, हर जगह होता है। लोकल लोग बाहर ज्यादा काम करते हैं। यहाँ पर एक क्विक क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम मिस्टर मनीष कुमार, स्पेशल सेक्रेटरी पीसीटी बिहार। मनीष जी, बात कर रहे थे मैं टेक्नोलॉजी की, तो अभी बिहार में व्हाट इज स्कोप ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी adoption in the state like Bihar, और आपको what are your views की how can we leverage technology to further streamline the overall functioning of the department? Mr. Manish Kumar.
Manishi, I believe you're on mute.
मीटिंग चल रहा है, 10 मिनट ना।
मनीष जी, आपसे मैं सवाल पूछ रहा था सर कि
am I audible now?
यस सर, यू आर ऑडिबल। मैं पूछ रहा था कि बिहार में टेक्नोलॉजी का क्या एडॉप्शन अभी तक हुआ है और आगे क्या फ्यूचर का?
नहीं, बिल्कुल हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे हैं लगातार चीजों को। जो हमारा रोड वर्क है, रोड कंस्ट्रक्शन जो फील्ड है हमारा, द लेंथ ऑफ रोड इज इंक्रीजिंग डे बाय डे। एनएच आ रहे हैं, स्टेट हाईवेज आ रही हैं और तमाम सड़कें बन रही हैं। बट उन सड़कों की जो है क्लोज मॉनिटरिंग करना अगर हम चाहे, उनकी क्या कंडीशन है, उनमें क्या पार्ट्स डेवलप हो रहे हैं, उनका रिपेयर कब हो रहा है, तो इसके लिए मैसिव स्केल पे मैन पावर की आवश्यकता होगी। तो अगर इस फील्ड में हम टेक्नोलॉजी का कुछ अगर उपयोग करते हुए मैन पावर के इन्वॉल्वमेंट को कम कर सके, तो ये बिग हेल्प फॉर दी रोड इंडस्ट्री। ये हुआ रोड के बारे में कि हम रोड का सर्वे करवा ले कुछ मैपिंग के थ्रू या आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस की डाटा होती है उसके थ्रू, जो कि थोड़ा सा इजिली अवेलेबल हो, तो उसको जो है उससे काफी मात्रा में मैन पावर को जो है साइट पर भेजना, फिर उनसे रिपोर्ट मंगाना, और उसमें वी कैन मिनिमाइज मे बी इवन इफ यू कैन से 50%, तो हमारे जो है मैन पावर का इन्वॉल्वमेंट उसमें कम हो सकता है उस काम में। सिमिलरली जो है रोड के अलावा जो है अगर हम बात करते हैं बिल्डिंग की भी, तो बिल्डिंग में भी जो है बिल्डिंग के बनने से लेके योजनाओं से लेके उसकी मॉनिटरिंग और फिर उसका मेंटेनेंस पार्ट भी है। हर स्टेज पे टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज करने से जो है हम लोग वी कैन श्योरली इम्प्रूव आवर अकाउंटेबिलिटी एंड आई मीन कितना डेज चीजें हम लोग यूज कर रहे हैं, ऐसा नहीं हम यूज नहीं कर रहे। बिहार में भी हम लोग ऑलरेडी हमारा एनआईसी है और डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं जिनकी वजह से हम लोग जो है वी हैव गॉट PMIS प्रोजेक्ट मॉनिटरिंग इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम, वी हैव गॉट ई-निवास फॉर आवर बिल्डिंग अलॉटमेंट एंड ऑल। So चीजें हम करें, बट देयर इज वास्ट स्कोप फर्दर आल्सो टू incorporate टेक्नोलॉजी टू I mean improve accountability, improve productivity and monitoring.
Thank you, Manish ji. Let me bring in here Mr. Ajit Ramachandran, Chief Engineer, Roads and Public Works Department, Kerala. Mr. Ramachandran, if you can hear me, yours is a state which is richly endowed with lot of natural beauty, long coastlines, hurry coastlines, rivers, natural resources, all those things. So how are you balancing between development and conservation? In other words, how are you ensuring or infusing sustainability while at the same time developing the coastal belt or coastal road lines in your state? Mr. Ajit Ramachandran. Ajit is there, Mr. Ajit Ramachandran? I can't hear from Mr. Ajit Ramachandran. I can see Development Commissioner from the government of Jharkhand, Mr. Sami.
No, sir, he is unable to connect. So
Okay.
he is getting some issues over there. So
Okay.
yeah.
No worries. We'll move on. I was trying to put one question before Mr. Ramachandran, but I'm afraid I'm not able to reach out to him. We can have concluding remarks from Mr. Sanjay Singh. from all the speakers, rather, not only Mr. Sanjay Singh, before I rope in Mr. Nikhil Baglorkar for the solutions, which all the speakers from different states were mentioning problems in their respective states. They also, there is a unanimous view that technology is one such thing which can help in rebuilding and infusing resilience into their operations. So what are the various offerings which Autodesk has, or what are the various ways in which Autodesk can partner with respective building and construction departments or PWD departments of respective states? I will have that question for Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar. But before that, a quick remark from Mr. Shivakumar.
Sir, I think I want to take this platform for help of construct speedy implementation of the road projects. Probably you are aware that actually for the other industrial under industrial infrastructures except road works, they have a single window system. Whereas in road construction work, there is no single window system. Because the road construction for any big road construction, we have major line department like revenue department, mines and geology department, forest department, archaeological survey department, and irrigation department. So like other infrastructure development project, if brings all these 5 departments in a single window system, the implementation period also be very less, planning period also will be very less, and also we can use the budgetary provision on time. So this is my request in this platform, so that I think it can be flagged at the appropriate place, so that we can try to get the necessary approval for the single window system for implementation of the projects, particularly for highway projects.
Here, I would like to bring in Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar from Autodesk, their APAC technical head. Nikhil, what are the latest updates and features that Autodesk is upcoming with to further help execute in better planning and citizen-centric designs?
So,
plus, you may also would like to address some of the spontaneous issues raised by the speakers here.
Thanks, Krishna. So if you look at it, technology has come a long way. And when you look at sustainability, it's not just a factor of how much carbon you're emitting while building a particular project, but it's also essentially the embodied carbon within the product that is being used, the embodied carbon. So the world has moved to something called as an EC3, the total embodied carbon calculation. And if you look at most accords that are being passed, and very soon we'll see regulations coming across the world in terms of amount of carbon embodied in all the development work that we're doing. But having said that, if you look at the way in which technology is heading, the number one motive that technology is trying to serve for pretty much all PWD projects across the world is trying to do things more efficiently, doing more with less, but at the same time bring about predictability in terms of the overall project costs. Today, when you look at any project, we take a buffer of 15% in terms of cost estimates. And when you estimate a particular project with that 15% cost and you give it to a vendor, the vendor again buffers another 15% because he or she doesn't know how the costs are going to flow or whether he needs rework. And by the time the project is actually executed on the ground, there's a lot of rework happening because the planning was not done properly. So essentially what technology does is it brings together all the stakeholders that are required for a particular project, talking to what Mr. Shivakumar also pointed to, getting the environmental clearance authorities on the same page, the authorities that are required to give clearance for the project from the same page, the people from the various stakeholders within the government. They can all come and review the project in real time and also review the progress of the project in real time. Because the actual project construction is in tune with the digital equivalent of that particular project. So what you're essentially arriving at is at a digital twin version of the project, which mimics the progress of the project. But even after the project is completed itself, this digital twin can also add a lot more value in terms of bringing in a lot of sensor information and IoT data to provide real-time statistics and analysis about the usability and viability of the project. For all you know, you've built a road which you anticipated will serve the purpose for the next 10 years, but you've hit the capacity within the first 3 years itself. So by having these IoT modules embedded inside the technology, you'll be able to predict much more accurately when the next project for maybe expanding the capacity of the road or the bridge or the network comes into place. But more importantly, what it can also do is it can also ensure that there is a lot of transparency in the way in which projects are executed in the PWD space, primarily because all the stakeholders are working on the same digital model, which is known as a BIM model, and they are all connected in same time. So things like quantity takeoffs, estimation, Sanjay ji spoke about being able to tag or rather associate gains or losses in a particular commodities price directly to the project so that the contractor doesn't suffer. All of those things, right, to accurately measuring the quantity takeoffs and associating that with the appropriate hikes in the cost of the project or reductions in the cost of the project, they can be all done by ensuring that the technology is involved throughout the life cycle of the project. So the model of the road, the building, which you had conceived during the concept design phase, continues into the detailed design phase when you actually detail out each and everything right up to the rebar layout, the steel rebar layout, and the bar bending schedules. That again gets integrated into your scheduling phase in terms of how your project is going to get scheduled. And that also gets integrated into your building phase, the construction phase, so that what was designed and what was is actually getting built, and your payouts to your contractors are in line with that. And that same model, that same digital twin model can continue into the operations phase as well as the maintenance phase of the particular project. So you can do things like predictive maintenance through sensor integration, essentially lengthening the lifespan of the project. Because let's face it, the cost of the project across, and this is an absolute truth across the world, the cost of the project is the actual construction cost is just 20% cost of the project. 80% of the cost of the project is actually incurred during the operations phase. So by bringing in elements like IoT and being able to do predictive maintenance, proactive maintenance, and proper capacity planning can really help deliver projects that are going to help us for the rapid growth that our country is going to
उसको
see.
बोलो मैंने व्हाट्सएप किया रोमान को ना, वो उसमें डिटेल है.
As well as it'll also help us ensure that we are able to do a lot more with less, while ensuring that the ecosystem around us in which we operate, we leave a better world for our children than the one which we inherited. Maybe may seem a little wishy-washy, but that's something that is actually what most technology companies are able to provide, and they've proven it time and again, including organizations like Autodesk, where we've got solutions right from concept design to detailed design to construction management, all the way up to operations and maintenance. And there's a single layer of a collaboration suite known as a common data environment, which ties together all of this to ensure data continuity as well as end-to-end visibility for everybody. Krishna ji, you're on.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Nikhil. In fact, this is such an interesting topic, building sustainability for building an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and in all aspects of the construction, that this program, which was supposed to conclude at 5 o'clock, I'll have to extend it by at least 30 minutes because we have got 2 more speakers who have just joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, those in the audience, please join me in welcoming Mr. Sami Yarif Yasvi. He's Development Commissioner, PWD in Government of Jammu. And we also have Mr. K.K. Pepari, Chief Engineer, PWD Department, Government of Chhattisgarh. These are 2 speakers who have just joined us. Before I move on to the rest of the panelists for their closing remarks, I would here like to request Mr. Sami Yarif, if I am audible to you, Mr. Yarif, please come on video and share your thoughts on this topic, building sustainability into all aspects of construction for building an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Shyam.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Namaskar, sir. Welcome.
I'm sorry I came a little late because I couldn't get connected. The topic is regarding buildings.
The topic is regarding building sustainability into all angles of construction, public construction, whether they are roads, buildings, highways. How do we build sustainability and infuse technology so as to streamline costs and time overruns?
First and foremost thing in building construction is proper planning at the initial stage. I am from J&K. We are prone to earthquakes also. We have to take into consideration the design factors for the earthquakes. And also there are this floods also at times. So flood is also an important thing for the building. We had a very drastic flood in 2014. And many of our buildings got drowned that time in Srinagar. And so while making a building in such a zone, one has to keep this thing in mind that the floor level, that has to be a little higher. HFL level is to be checked, should be checked while constructing a building. And also all the factors which are governed for this earthquake, those have to be incorporated for the building. Especially in the flood zone areas. And also important things, these flood protect, there's in view of floods also, the building has to be kept so that submergence does not take place. Essentially for public buildings, I would advise, for example, the hospitals are there. In hospitals, normally we always keep operation theaters at their top level. So that those should be kept. Or for example, we have exchange these BSNL or other these exchanges. Those should be. We have now shifted them to from ground level to the top level, so that the damages don't take place. These are very important things in buildings. And then in buildings, we have to see that it should merge with the architecture of a place, particular place. Every place has its own architecture also. So the buildings should not come up as it should be under a proper plan. They should be there, and it should merge with the environment as well. We have roofs in this hilly areas. Those roofs should be in aesthetic manner. Now we are using some other materials also. We should use those materials. But if we have some traditional materials also, we have to upgrade them also. We should use them also. We have many these traditional items in building constructions. Everywhere they are there. So we must make good use of those traditional items. That is my point.
In fact, Mr. Sami, if we talk of sustainability, the angle of sustainability could not be more higher than in the fragile states, ecologically fragile states like Jammu. I talk of Jammu or Uttarakhand or Himachal. All these states are highly fragile from nature's point of view. And it's all the more pertinent that we bring in the element of sustainability, and rightly mentioned by you. Now time now to go back to the basics and imbibe those good old practices which were environment friendly. Need of the hour is only to infuse some angle of technology and modernity into them, so that they are not out of the context. At the same time, they are able to preserve as well.
Yeah,
here I would like to bring Mr. Pepri. I know our apologies, Mr. K.K. Pepri. You have been waiting for quite a long time. So, Chief Engineer, Public Works Department, Chhattisgarh Government, Mr. K.K. Pepri. If I may have your perspective on this topic. K.K. Pepri, sahab.
Sorry, I could not due to other things. We are talking about the sustainability in the project. I am taking the roads in working the national highway project this last 7-8 years. So my experience is the quality of work is the main cause of project, and quality is the main issue. So somehow we should come together and first focus on the quality and especially on the putting the lower rates and not working with the quality as desired by the government. And time overrun due to non-cooperation of the different agencies in the state, especially department, municipal corporation, and PWD. So we should improve the operation. We should come together, come and review time to time, so that especially in Chhattisgarh, my chief secretary is reviewing all the national highway works and coordinating with all the departments to avoid the time of project. And quality control, because most of the roads
Mr. Pipri, can you please put on your video?
are failing or facing
Okay.
quality issues, especially in the temperature high most of the time, around 9 in the year. So how somebody is trying to achieve the quality and avoid the time overrun in the project, so that we can complete the projects in the time, the proper quality as desired by the public. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pipri. Although the audio could have been more better, I understand that was a technical bottleneck which was beyond your control. Now, we would like to have quick concluding remarks from all these speakers. I would begin from Mr. Manish Kumar, Special Secretary, BCD, Bihar Government. Quick concluding remarks of 2 minutes, please. Mr. Manish Kumar. Manish ji, are you there?
Sorry, I was mute again. No, am I audible now?
Concluding, yes, you are audible. Concluding comments from you on this topic. 2 minutes.
Thanks a lot to your whole team to make us able to connect to technology partners and people, very senior people from the industry. We could hear to many chief engineers who have pretty long experience of construction work. In fact, such meetings should be happening more frequently, so that, because whatever we are losing, whatever gain we can get through technology leveraging, we are slowly losing. And money loss is, it is loss only. So the more interaction we can take and we are able to interact more technology, we could save in the front of there can be financial savings, there can be environmental savings, as well as savings on the part of ecology also, ecosystem. So thanks a lot, and hope to get more chance to participate in the meetings.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Manish ji. In fact, this has been one of the primary objective of programs like this, to bring together all the key stakeholders, whether from the administration or from the various departments or from the industry players like Autodesk, so that we understand each other's needs and requirements and build together an ecosystem which is fruitful and which is conducive and which leads us to greater prosperity of the nation.
In fact, I just add, before I can conclude, a few days back we are listening of 3D building printings. When I was just talking to somebody, they told us now we can have a 2 BHK flat at a cost of some 5.5 lakhs. So if such things comes, suddenly we are able to generate more housing for the people can afford for the good housing.
That was a very good point you raised. Our industry partner from Autodesk, Nikhil Baglokotkar, was mentioning about these prefabricated systems. I will request Mr. Nikhil to put this point in his concluding remarks when I come to him about this 3D design and prefabricated units. But before that, quick closing comments from Mr. Sanjay Singh, Chief Engineer, BCD, Jharkhand. Rest of the speakers, if you may kindly mute yourself. Sanjay Singh साहब.
हाँ, yes, yes. ये मैं एक कंक्लूडिंग ये कहना चाहता हूँ, किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट का हम लोग जो फील किए इतने दिन के सर्विस में, किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट का प्रोजेक्ट आवाज आ रही है?
नहीं, मुझे तो नहीं आई। एक बार अगर आप दोबारा बोलें, मुझे लगा शायद मेरे इंटरनेट में कुछ दिक्कत हो गई। प्लीज रिपीट।
हाँ,
संजय
आवाज
जी,
आ रही है?
अब आ रही है, अब आ रही है,
आवाज आ रही है?
अब आ रही है।
हाँ, अब हम लोग का ये कहना था कि जैसे हम लोग को फॉरेस्ट क्लियरेंस लेना पड़ता है किसी प्रोजेक्ट में, अगर फॉरेस्ट में होता है, इसके कारण आपको यह सरप्राइज होगा, दोनों गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट है, वो हम लोग स्टेट गवर्नमेंट वो सेंट्रल में, अगर कोई भी प्लॉट जो है, कोई भी एरिया अगर 2.48 एकड़ से 1 हेक्टेयर से ज्यादा बन रहे होंगे, एक फॉरेस्ट क्लियरेंस लेने में कितने समय लग जाते हैं, वो प्रोजेक्ट का कॉस्ट जो है इसके कारण हम लोग अब काफी बढ़ जाता है। मतलब आप सरप्राइज होइएगा कि हम लोग किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट में 6 मंथ से ज्यादा लग जाता है सिर्फ एक क्लियरेंस लेने में, प्रोजेक्ट क्लियरेंस में, गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट को। अब दूसरे लोग भी शेयर कर सकते हैं इस चीज को। इन्वायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस फिर लेना पड़ता है, इन्वायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस में भी 6 मंथ लग जाते हैं। फिर आता है हम लोग कंसेंट टू ऑपरेट, वो हम लोग को पॉल्यूशन बोर्ड से क्लियरेंस लेना पड़ता है। इस तरह से किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट को जब होता है, उसके बाद 1 साल कम बहुत प्रोजेक्ट में हम लोग को क्लियरेंस में लगता है। इसे कारण कॉस्ट जो है बढ़ जा रहा है। तो इस चीज को इस तरह से मिनिमाइज करना चाहिए।
सॉरी संजय जी, आपके
हमें लग रहा है कि
इंटरनेट में
हम
कुछ प्रॉब्लम है।
आवाज आप लोग को
हाँ,
नहीं मिल पा
मुझे
रही है।
आपको इंटरप्ट करना पड़ेगा। देयर इज सम प्रॉब्लम विद द इंटरनेट कनेक्शन। लेट मी ब्रिंग इन हियर फॉर द क्लोजिंग कमेंट्स मिस्टर केपी शिव कुमार, प्रोजेक्ट
अभी आ
डायरेक्टर
रहा है,
ऑफ
आवाज आ
केशिप।
रही है?
हाँ, अब आ रही है सर। अगर 1 मिनट में अगर अपनी बात, नेक्स्ट मिनट आ रही है, अभी आवाज आ रही है।
अब मेरा एक ये फाइनल ये है कि ये जो प्लेटफॉर्म पे हम लोग इस तरह को, इसलिए जो बात आ रही है कि फॉरेस्ट क्लियरेंस, इन्वायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस और जो पॉल्यूशन बोर्ड का जो ये रहता है, इसका एक टाइमलाइन फ्रेम एक होना चाहिए कि कितने दिन के अंदर किसी को क्लियरेंस दे देना चाहिए, खास करके फॉरेस्ट क्लियरेंस को लेकर के, जहाँ की एरिया 2.48 एकड़ से ज्यादा है, मतलब 1 हेक्टेयर से ज्यादा एरिया है। इफ द एरिया इज मोर देन 1 हेक्टेयर और डीम्ड फॉरेस्ट भी है, अगर मतलब गवर्नमेंट लैंड है, लेकिन अगर उसका टाइप्स जंगल झाड़ी है, तो उसमें भी क्लियरेंस लेना पड़ता है। ये बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज हो जाता है और इसमें हम लोग सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पा रहे हैं। इसमें किस तरह से गवर्नमेंट को ये करना चाहिए, करना चाहिए दूसरे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, मतलब हमें लग रहा है फिर आवाज नहीं आ रही है आपको।
हाँ, आपका मैं करेक्ट समझ गया हूँ सर। थैंक यू सो मच संजय जी। द क्रक्स ऑफ थिंग इज कि वी नीड टू डू समथिंग व्हिच इज पर्टेनिंग टू क्लियरेंसेस एज फार एज एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस इज कंसर्न्ड, और pollution
Mainly
clearance
forest,
is
mainly
concerned, or forest clearance is concerned. And this is something which is under the domain of both the union as well as the state governments. So we can only wish that the government of India also comes in and rolls out some. उसमें बहुत, it's a debatable question actually. Whenever we try to do, we have to walk very tight rope and do very fine balancing, because we have to balance the environmental concerns of the activists as well as the concerns of the developments as well. So एक बीच का रास्ता ढूंढने की बिल्कुल, as rightly mentioned by you, हमको अभी दरकार है. Let me bring in here Mr. KP Shiv Kumar, Project Director of Karnataka State Highways Improvement Projects, PWD Department, Government of Karnataka, for the quick closing remarks. Mr. Shiv Kumar.
Thank you, sir. When the question of sustainability and the new technologies comes, I think for any project, the three major stakeholders, one is an employer, one is the consultants, one is the contractor. So actually the employer is actually only the policy makers, and consultants will follow that, and contractors should actually, they are the real person to execute the work. So whatever that actually we implement and will be a forecast, that contractor should be strengthened, they should follow. So that if any future this kind of debate and panel discussion, we need to actually involve the actually some of the good construction company for this panel discussion and also the consultants, because they have to put more effort to actually to strengthen the policy and take the India still further forward and give the Gati Shakti to our project, sir.
A very relevant point and well taken also. Without involving the construction partners, possibly we cannot say that all the stakeholders have been brought on board. And as rightly mentioned by you, and I think Mr. Sanjay Singh also mentioned the same thing, that construction vendors or construction contractors are equal partners, and they are the one who actually execute whatever plans we are formulating and designing in the boardrooms. So it's quite necessary for them also to be brought in and to be sensitized about the environmental and sustainability concerns. Final closing comments from the industry partner from Autodesk, Mr. Nikhil Bagalkotkar.
So amazing discussions today, right? We heard from the esteemed panelists on various topics, right from getting clearances and how tech can help there. Just taking a second to talk to that before I come to the conclusion. So there are ways and means in which today technology is evolved where automatic routing of roads and highways can be done. And what's happened is to make life even easier. There's an integration with mapping tools which are freely available, things like Bing Maps or Google Maps, and we can use that to route the roads between different destinations in such a way that there is minimal ecological damage. I understand that there's zoning that happens for particular pieces of lands or land parcels, right? There are certain zones which are plots for agriculture, which is okay to consume for building roads, but then there are some which are forest land, which is a little more difficult because you need NGT clearances, National Green Title clearances for redeveloping or building those lands, and then you need to substitute. There's a long process. So today the technology is evolved to such an extent that we can actually look at aerial photography, understand the type of land and automatically route the roads and the redevelopment work in such a way that there is minimal loss to green cover. At the same time, we can also build roads in a manner, roads, highways, rails, anything in such a manner that we can account for things like flood analysis, flood path analysis. We can even minimize the amount of earthwork required, where the algorithms can do the cut fill analysis in such a way that the amount of earthwork required to build a particular road can be minimized by selecting a path which is automated. So all of this technology really does is it opens up a whole world of possibilities. If you leave it to the human mind, we'll think of one way to get from point A to point B. But if you leave it to a computer algorithm, it will probably try a million different options before identifying which option is the best way. So there's a lot of capabilities that we at Autodesk have been providing to the world over in this space. Not just that, but even when it comes to construction, things like prefab, industrialized construction are no longer a niche area where only the ones who are on the cutting edge of technology are using. It's now an everyday thing. If you look at any metro rail project in the country today, or even if there is an existing metro rail project anywhere close to you, if you just look at them, most of the elements for the pillars, the spans are all prefabricated. None of that is cast on site. So what's happening is that as we move towards the future and as we move towards executing projects at a much faster pace, because that's the need of the hour, we need to start looking at involving technology right into the decision-making process in whether to, first of all, substantiate the feasibility of the project or not. And secondly, even when you're quoting vendors to execute on a particular project, we need to ensure that we are mandating the use of technology for the entire life cycle of the project. Because at the end of the day, I'll again reiterate that the construction cost is just 20% of the project. 80% of the cost of the project comes during the actual operation and maintenance. And how we design something now is going to influence not just the next 1 or 2 years, but the next couple of decades or more. And that's where I believe it makes a lot more sense for esteemed panelists like yourselves to partner with technology vendors, to not look at it as a technology vendor as somebody who's coming to sell you a particular product or a technology, but to look at them as consultants who can come in and tell you how to execute a project more efficiently. At the end of the day, even the vendors do realize that it's not going to be the PWD department that's going to buy the licenses. It will be the contractor or the winner of the contract. But what that essentially does is, by having a much more closer integration between the two parties, we ensure that the project is being developed and deployed in a manner which is going to meet not just the demands of today, but the demands of the future, is going to get delivered on time, under cost, and is going to ensure that there are no hurdles for the contractors. There's going to be no contractor who puts his hands up saying that I've run out of money, I can't do this. So all of those challenges, which are practical challenges that we encounter, can be adjusted. It's just another statistic. I keep throwing these statistics. I just ran a report not so long ago with a consulting agency, and as much as 68% of all public work projects in the country are either over budget or over time. It would be awesome if we can do all of those projects on budget, in time, and then use that additional money for some other initiatives to see. The demand is just going to keep on skyrocketing, right? Our population is not coming down, our urbanization is not going to reduce. The only way to tackle this is to work with technology partners to understand how technology can help you do more with less. So long answer, but with those closing comments, I'll hand it back to you, Krishna.
Thank you, Nikhil. Amazing insight that 60% of the country's projects are either running over time or they are running over the budget. And that would be a really amazing scenario if that 60% can be brought down gradually to 30, 10, 20, and 0. And that gradual bringing down can only be possible if we incorporate the element of technology in our planning and designing of all the infrastructure projects. As rightly mentioned by you, 20% is only the cost of the project, construction cost, whereas 80% is the cost during the construction. And that 80% cost is something, if rightly planned at the very initial stage, the repercussions or implications of that otherwise might be felt, as rightly mentioned by you, in decades to come. And this is something which we have to learn from today's technology discussion. How can the industry and the user departments collaborate in an effective and in a symbiotic manner, wherein they identify, wherein they recognize each other's needs and strengths, and then symbiotically partner for a winning combination as far as a sustainable development and as far as building of an Atmanirbhar Bharat or a new Bharat is concerned. With this, my thanks and gratitude to all the speakers here. I know we are talking of time overruns, but I myself have overrun the time today by almost 50%. So my apologies to all these esteemed speakers, those who have left, apologies to them in their absence. Before I actually conclude this discussion, as a token of gratitude from Elets Technomedia, certificate for all these speakers here. Those who are right now here, I can see Mr. Manish, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Mr. Pipari, of course, Nikhil is there, and those who had to leave because we just overran the panel discussion time limit. This certificate, a token of gratitude for Special Secretary, Building Construction Department, Government of Bihar, Mr. Manish Kumar. Thank you so much, Mr. Manish, for staying put throughout the discussion and giving your rich insight and wisdom to this panel discussion. The next certificate of gratitude to our speaker, if I may request the team, for Mr. Shivaram Subramaniam, Chief Engineer, Andaman Public Works Department, Andaman and Nicobar Administration. Mr. Shivarama had given his opening comments. After that, there was some technical blockade and he had to leave. Thank you so much in his absence. We had Mr. Shiv Kumar here, Mr. KP Shiv Kumar, Project Director and Chief Engineer, Karnataka State Highways Improvement Projects, Public Works Department, Government of Karnataka. Thank you, Mr. Shiv Kumar, for lending your wisdom, your insight into the topic. Mr. Ajit Ramachandran, Chief Engineer, Roads and Public Works Department, Government of Kerala. Thank you so much, Mr. Ajit, though we would have loved to hear more from you. Mr. Nikhil Bagal Kotkar was the industry expert here who had his amazing statistics. He gave some really eye-opening statistics, which were an eye-opener to all of us, to all the audience. Nikhil Bagalkotkar is Technical Head APEC, AEC Business in Autodesk. Our thanks and gratitude to Mr. K.K. Pepare, Chief Engineer, Public Works Department, Government of Chhattisgarh, for lending his wisdom on the topic. Then we had a representation from Jammu and Kashmir also, Mr. Development Commissioner, Public Works Department, J&K Government, Mr. Sami Yarid Yasvi. Thank you so much, Mr. Yasvi. In a nutshell, we had this amazing panel of speakers from the length and breadth of the country, right from J&K in the north to Kerala in the south, Andaman in the southeast, to Chhattisgarh in the center. So almost all the states, including Bihar and Jharkhand, we had amazing discussions here, discussing the challenges and opportunities in the sustainable development of roads and constructions and public construction department in the country. So with this, we conclude this panel discussion. Our thanks to our industry partner, Autodesk, who helped us in bringing out this knowledge conference before the audience. And with this, we conclude this discussion here. Thank you so much, all of you. Bye-bye.